Hello everybody! Today I'm going to do a video about Dark Harvest versus Electrocute. I've been asked quite a lot about my opinion on Electrocute versus Dark Harvest, and some people were, asking me in the comment section why I think that Electrocute is better and why I think Dark Harvest is bad, which I never really said. But I'm gonna try to give my explanation on that. I'm gonna try to clarify everything because I feel like a lot of people misunderstood what I said in my Shaco guide. Let's start with a quick rundown on both of the keystones, starting with Electrocute. Electrocute deals adaptive damage, so that means if you have more AP, it deals AP damage or magic damage, and if you have more AD, it deals physical damage. And it procs after 3 attacks, so basically, for example, E and 2 auto attacks. It has a base damage of 50 at level 1 and a base damage of 220 at level 18. Those are 10 damage per level. It also has a scaling, 30% of your AP and 50% of your bonus AD. So if you have 280, Shaco's base AD is 80 and his bonus AD in this case would be 120. So 50% of that would be 60. So sadly this has a pretty high cooldown on level 1, for example. It has 50 seconds on level 1, but it gets lower and goes down to 25 at level 18. So Dark Harvest is a pretty interesting keystone. It's basically like Nasus Q. The more you farm, the higher the damage is gonna be. So Dark Harvest has soul essences. You get soul essences by killing champions, which grant 6. Big minions, like the cannon minion for example, or super minions, grant 4 stacks. And large monsters, for example blue, red buff, wolves, wraiths, grant 2 soul essence. Dark Harvest has a base damage of 40 at level 1 and 80 at level 18, which basically means the steps are 2.33 damage per level. It also deals adaptive damage just like Electrocute, and also has bonus AD scaling and AP scaling, but in this case it's only 20% of the AP and only 25% of the bonus AD. Now to the interesting part. The on-hit damage only lasts for 20 seconds after killing something or in general getting your soul essence. If you have 150 soul essence though, this time increases from 20 seconds to 300 seconds, which is huge. Okay, so now I'm gonna give my thoughts on each keystone, starting with Electrocute. It's a great early game or mid game damage, and it is a reliable damage, so it doesn't run out of time or has stacks which make it deal more or less damage. And it also has a very good AD scaling. But there's also a downside, of course. It is harder to proc than Dark Harvest. You need 3 attacks and Dark Harvest only needs the auto attack. It has a low late game damage just because it doesn't have the scaling kind of factor like Dark Harvest has with the stacks. It has a high cooldown. It goes from 50 seconds to 25. Dark Harvest has no cooldown. So overall it is a good early game tool to carry the game and finish them quickly. But the longer the game goes, the more useless it gets. Okay, now Dark Harvest. Basically, everything you kill gives a stack except minions. So big minions give a stack, jungle creeps give a stack, and champion kills give us stacks. So that's pretty cool. It scales really well into the late game, and it is really easy to proc. But the problem with it is that it's really weak early game. The stacks fall off really quick pre 150 stacks. So it only takes 20 seconds, and if you don't have it active, you basically don't have a keystone. And overall, it's a great keystone if you know how to play with it. It's good for invading because you can steal the enemy jungle camps, and it's a good snowballing tool if you know what you're doing. The biggest point really is that it has a huge power spike at 150 stacks because the stacks now last for 5 minutes, and it also resets, so in a team fight you're gonna be having huge value. Okay, so now the final part. Which keystone is quotations better than the other? This is a very hard one to say. As I said before, everything in this game depends on preference. There's things that, for example, deal more damage or have a higher win rate, but in the end, if you cannot use Dark Harvest because you just can't get used to it, there's no point in using it just because it's better in quotations. So what I say is that Electrocute is great for the early game. You have a static early game damage. It doesn't rely on any variables, so you can always counter the damage. The problem with it is that the longer the game goes, the more it falls off. while Dark Harvest is the exact opposite. In the early game, it's kind of hard to, you know, get your proc off, but if you have 150 stacks, like, your damage is gonna be insane. You're gonna be dealing so much damage, you can pretty much one-shot anyone that isn't a tank reliably, so that's pretty huge. Now, what you want to do is, before you go in-game, you just check, okay, so do we have, you know, can we stall out the game long enough for me to actually get those 150 stacks, or is it gonna be really hard, and are we gonna maybe lose the early game and just lose the game in less than 20 minutes? That's always, you just always have to think about the game, try to think ahead, and stick to what works to you. If you are using Electrocute and watching this video right now, and think to yourself, oh, okay, so Dark Harvest is better late game, I like the late game, but Electrocute works wonderfully for you, sure, try Dark Harvest out, but if it doesn't work, don't forcefully stick to it just because some people maybe even say it's better. That's super stupid. Just stick to what you prefer, listen to others, you know, use their tips, but if it doesn't work, just fuck it, just use whatever works for you. So that's basically it. So the TLDR, too long didn't read version of this guide is basically try both out, see what works, you know, try to think about maybe switch it up each game. If you want to win the early game, take Electrocute. If you want to win the late game, take Dark Harvest. It's all preference, it's all what you can get used to or what you are used to. It's all depending on you. There is no best or worst keystone, just take whatever you prefer and what works for you.